Say you want to sell a used machine to China or move your production line to China. Is that possible? And if so, what do you need to know? Can I sell used machines to China? The short answer? Well, yes, of course it's possible. And it's even a good idea because there's many potential buyers in China. The slightly longer answer, a used machine requires an approval from Chinese customs before it can be imported into China. That sort of inspection is called a pre-shipment inspection, and as the name suggests, is done before the machine is shipped to China. If the machine passes the inspection, you will receive a corresponding certificate which the Chinese buyer or user in the end can use to get the machine or the shipment out of Chinese customs. Who carries out the inspection? How does it work? What do you have to pay attention to make it work? That's exactly what I'll explain in this video. Well, let me give you a little bit of reassurance beforehand. The pre-shipment inspection, or PSI for short, is not very complicated and does not take forever. So it's not an obstacle to successful sales or relocation to China. However, the requirements of Chinese customs are not always so clear, which is how unnecessary delays can occur. In the next few minutes, I'll first go into the costs of the pre-shipment inspection, then into the process, and then I will tell you how to avoid unnecessary delays. Surely you are wondering how much such an inspection and certification might cost you. After all, a second-hand machine is interesting precisely because of its low price. Well, there are some basic costs such as travel costs, which on average are between 500 and 900 euros. Then there are the administrative costs, which are roughly 1,000 euros. Finally, the cost of the inspection itself. The cost of the inspection increases relative to the sales value of the machine. For example, if the machine is worth about 10,000 euros or less, the inspection will cost 930 euros. If the machine is worth 100,000 euros, roughly, the inspection will cost about 1,900 euros. And if the machine is still worth 1 million euros, inspection costs will hover around 7,000 euros. These costs are just indications for you to get an idea how much it will cost. In the end, the specific cost will be calculated specifically on the basis of the machine's value. Now, you could get the idea to say that this is an internal transfer. The machine is not even sold at all. So the residual value is zero, and thusly the inspection costs are also zero. Well, unfortunately that is not possible. Chinese customs do not allow a pro forma invoice for the customs invoice with the value of zero. So you have to give a realistic value. It is also important that that value that you give in the customs invoice is the same as the value in the application form for the pre-shipment inspection. Okay, now you have a rough idea about the costs, so let's move on to the process. As with all other approvals, the certification process for the pre-shipment inspection starts with an application. In most countries, there are 3 application documents. In Germany, there are 4. For those 4 documents, please visit the German video. Form 1 for most other countries than Germany. Form 1 registers the parties, i.e. the seller and the buyer. Form 2 is the description of the machine. It includes information on construction year and customs tariffs number and other information on the machine. The third form is an authorization for the seller to accompany the inspection on behalf of the buyer. So the Chinese buyer or the Chinese user of the machine authorizes a person in Germany at the seller's side to accompany the inspection when it happens. Note here that these documents need to be signed and stamped by the Chinese buyer. This is the first important point that you need to pay attention to. It is not the seller who is the applicant, but instead the buyer. The same applies if you merely move the machine to your Chinese factory. Then your Chinese factory is the applicant. However, the application and inspection must still take place in Europe. Okay, so now the documents have been finalized and have been stamped and signed by the buyer. The next step is setting a date for the inspection. Now, Chinese customs expect you to pay the entire inspection fees before you even get an appointment for the actual inspection. Now, with agents like ERA, we do get some benefits because of our long-standing relationships with Chinese customs. We can actually set an inspection date before you've even paid the fees. But in any case, the inspection fees need to be paid before the actual inspection takes place. That's why you receive an invoice from us right at the beginning with an immediate due date. As I said, this is not our own requirement, but that of the Chinese customs. Okay, so let's say now the first invoice has been paid. Then the inspection will normally take place between 5 and 8 working days afterwards. And the inspection itself will only take a few hours. The inspector of the Chinese customs will mainly look at the condition as well as the safety precautions of the machine. During the inspection, it is important that the machine is clean, the type plate is up to date, and the most important components are freely visible. This also means that the machine must not be packed under any circumstances. Where the machine is inspected is relatively unimportant. It may already be dismantled or still in operation, but if it is packed away, the inspection cannot take place and must be repeated at a charge. One more point. A person who is familiar with the machine must accompany the inspector during the inspection and be available to answer questions. If you remember document 3 of the application documents, this person is also the representative from this same document, the authorization from the Chinese buyer. At the end of the inspection, the representative authorized by this document 3 must sign the preliminary inspection report. At the end of the inspection, the inspector will tell you directly whether it was successful or not. If it was unsuccessful, you will have to correct the faults and repeat the inspection sometime later for a fee. If, on the other hand, as we all hope, it was successful, you can expect the certificate between 6 to 12 working days. Now, it should be noted here that it is not the seller, but the Chinese buyer who needs the original certificate. The Chinese buyer needs the certificate to get the machines released from Chinese customs, which is why the original certificate is being sent to China so that he can do that. But let's come back to the seller for now. Depending on how you want to ship the machine, by ship or by air, the next final step is different. If you deliver by air, you must enclose a copy of the certificate within the delivery documents. Usually a PDF copy suffices here. The original still needs to be sent to China and above all needs to arrive in China before the shipment arrives in China. That's why you need to time the delivery exactly. If the machine arrives in China before the documents do, the machine will get stuck in customs and that costs money. If shipping by ship, on the other hand, everything is quite relaxed. You can pack up and ship directly after the inspection, because even if the transport by ship is quick and only takes 1 month, for example, the documents will still be in China before that. Alright, now, process and costs of the pre-shipment inspection should by now be relatively clear. And I've already mentioned some potential mistakes, but here towards the end, let me summarize the 6 most common mistakes again. Number 1. Applicant is the buyer or user in China, not the seller in Europe. That also means that all documents need to be signed and stamped by the buyer in China. Number 2, payment of the inspection fees. I've already mentioned before, Chinese customs requires this payment to arrive before you even get an appointment. Through us, you can get the appointment before you actually have to pay, but in every case, the inspection fees need to be paid before the inspection takes place. Number 3, it does not matter where the inspection takes place. The only thing that is important is that it takes place before the shipment and that the machine is not packed. Every essential component and the type plate need to be freely visible. So under no circumstances can the machines be packed before the inspection. Number 4. Now this might seem a little irrelevant to you, but it's quite important to customs. The machine must be clean. Now the inspectors do not only care that the machine is functional, they also care that it is tidy and safe and looks tidy and safe. Number 5. Some components are definitely excluded from being imported into China. These include, for example, ovens of any kind, pressure vessels or even monitors. So if, for example, you have a monitor mounted on the outside of your machine to give you details on the inside, on the production process, you need to unmount that monitor before you pack and ship that machine into China. Now, we will be happy to provide you with a detailed list of all components that are excluded from import into China on request. Finally, number 6. The certificate issued at the end of the inspection is sent to China and not to the seller where the inspection takes place. As I mentioned, this is relevant because the buyer or the user in China needs the original to get the machine out of customs. All right, that's it. Now, thank you for your attention. I hope that this video has been helpful to you. If you have a PSI ahead of you or you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us or call us. Otherwise, see you next week. Have a good day.